Embattled Chinese property developer Evergrande has said it is unable to meet qualifications for the issuance of new notes under its debt restructuring plan. Asian stocks are in the red today as a consequence, and developer stocks are tumbling on the stock exchanges in the Asia-Pacific region. With more than $300 billion in total liabilities, including offshore debt, Evergrande has been at the center of a property debt crisis. Multiple Chinese developers as well have defaulted over the past year, and many entered debt restructuring talks. For more on this now, let's go to Han Tan. He is Exinity Group Chief Market Analyst here in Abu Dhabi. Thank you for joining us today. So let's start with Evergrande. Han, what is the end game for this company? Are we really going to face the risk of liquidation, and what would be the consequence of that?
Yeah, I think faced against the possibility that you mentioned there, I think the end game is, at least from the company's perspective, is to stay alive, right? And in the meantime, I think the utmost priority is to somehow either find more time and or cash, and both are running out fast, right? So hence this risk of liquidation looming large, and we're about a month away from perhaps a court ruling in Hong Kong that may order or compel that liquidation. And your question, those consequences would range from the demise of what was China's, what once was China's largest developer, to an even bigger haircut for investors and potentially a greater drag on the broader Chinese and perhaps global economy.
Right. On this point, Han, more generally, we are seeing a rapidly deteriorating sentiment on a sector that has been already in the eye of the storm for quite some time, as we've said. How are Chinese authorities tackling this crisis, and why has the market been so disappointed so far?
Yeah, so to be fair, they have relaxed some rules for mortgages, for example, but to use the same word that you used earlier, when it comes to arresting pessimism or sentiment, right, surrounding an entire sector, that's a whole different ballgame, right? And keep in mind that this is a very important sector for the Chinese economy, accounting for about 20% of GDP. So policymakers are really stuck here because on one hand, they have signaled that they want market forces to let it do its thing, but at the same time, it also then puts to risk the country's financial system, which is over $60 trillion, and also, like I mentioned earlier, put to risk the broader economic growth momentum, right? So personally, I still don't think that policymakers are willing to really risk that kind of Armageddon, so to speak, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just let things run its course, at least for a while longer, until that pain threshold, that ultimate pain threshold is actually met.
Okay, we'll see what sort of impact that will have on the sector. Han Tan, thank you for your analysis.
Thanks for having me.
And now let's go to the top stories from around the world. The European Commission's Executive Trade Commissioner will hold high-level trade talks with the Chinese Vice Premier. EU leaders have expressed concern about the bloc's trade deficit with China, saying they do not want to cut ties with Beijing. It follows EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's announcement of an investigation into Chinese subsidies to electric vehicle producers. Singapore's core inflation has eased to its lowest level in more than a year, giving the central bank more room to extend its pause on monetary tightening. Consumer prices, excluding housing and private transportation, rose 3.4% year-on-year in August, lower than the 3.8% seen in July. Headline inflation also slipped to 4%, in line with expectations. And Qantas has warned rising fuel costs may force it to increase fares from already elevated levels. Australia's biggest airline said a jump in the cost of jet fuel and a lower Australian dollar could add $200 million in additional cost for the second half of the year. The carrier has also unveiled a $80 million investment for the improvement of its customer service.